In the month that contains Thanksgiving, we are ever so grateful for Tim and for Dr. Gary Smart. Please listen to the words of Paula Gordon Lepp, titled Communion at the BP gas station. She begins. It was a little thing, really, his offer to fill my tire. I was unscrewing the valve cap and heard a voice behind me saying, "Here, I'll get that for you." "Oh, that's okay, I've got it," is what I normally would say to such overtures. My knee-jerk reaction to offers of help. I am the one that offers help. I am the one who serves. Perhaps it was the eager spirit on his face or his brown eyes full of hopeful connection that caused me to say, okay. I felt the vibration of his unspoken benediction. I can't do much for you, fellow weary traveler, but I can do this. Lay your burden down, and I will carry it for a bit. And I couldn't help but wonder how many times I have denied someone the blessing of serving because I had been too stubborn to accept their gift. As I was standing there in the sun-drenched gas station parking lot, the hiss and tick of the air pump sounded so much like a psalm. I watched his hands, a few shades lighter than the Goodyear rubber, filling more than just my tire with air, while goodness and grace swirled around us, way stronger than the fumes of the gasoline. The symbol of our faith is a chalice with a flame. Each Sunday, a member of our congregation lights our chalice as we hear words that remind us why this is important to us. I invite Janet Spivey, who signed the membership book this morning, to come forward. I will read the words of Albert Schweitzer. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with great gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. Unquote. In the glow of that gratitude, let our worship begin. Thank you, Janet. I invite you, please rise in body or spirit and join our song leaders to sing our opening hymn, number 134 in the gray hymnal, Our World is One World. The words are also on your screen.
Seas that wash us right.
Thank you. We are off to an exciting start for November as we have had a number of recent days to enjoy the cooler weather and bright, clear sunshine. Yes, after a week or so of, we won't talk about it. I am happy to welcome you to this progressive spiritual congregation whose mission is to create and nourish a loving community that seeks justice and respect for all. We are not a creedal denomination, meaning we have no formal statement of religious beliefs that you are required to profess in order to be a member. We are a living faith where each individual is invited to intellectual and spiritual development and to nurture truth, doubt, uncertainty, and growth to a better understanding of our own spiritual selves. And we encourage our children to do the same, to ask questions, to think, and express themselves. We do this through the lens of the shared values of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Those are found on the back of your order of service, with love at the center and the foundation of them all. We especially welcome any first-time or returning guests. I invite you to stop at the table at the entrance and get some information about our church and our denomination, and get a name tag so that we can start to get to know you. After the service, there will be refreshments served at the windows in the back, and we will spend time socializing. There are also reserved chairs at the back of the last row to provide seating for persons who may have mobility issues. We hope everyone will find a safe and loving community here, and that you can imagine yourselves being part of us. Remember, though, we cannot make a difference in the world by simply going to church and imagining how things can be better. We need to be the church and live out those values that build a different world we seek. As I just mentioned, the UU denomination has values that guide us to be our best selves rather than a creed or dogma that we must profess to be a UU. In addition to those values, members of our church came together to develop our own commitment in how we will be in relationship with one another. We say this commitment, this covenant, every Sunday to remind ourselves of these intentions. Please remain seated and join me in reciting our congregational covenant that's printed in your order of service, and the words are also on the screen. We covenant to engage one another with honesty, kindness, and respect, to value diversity, seek understanding of our differences, and practice gracious accountability with care, love, and empathy. We make these promises to those who are here and those yet to come, so that we may be a safe, welcoming, and beloved community of acceptance, learning, and transformation. Now, if you will please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our call to worship. The words are printed in your order of service, and guess what? They're also on the screen. Thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. It's really amazing to know that the person who wrote the words to that hymn, that hauntingly beautiful hymn, wrote the words out of tragedy, where he lost his 4 young daughters on a trip across the Atlantic Ocean aboard a ship that went down, and that he could write something as beautiful as "It is well with my soul." Talk about acceptance. As Judy Holmes and John Wrightington come forward to assist with the offering, I remind you that your giving to this church is an expression of love that's called generosity. We demonstrate living our values when we open our hearts to participate in this spiritual practice. BBUUC has long been a beacon for liberal religious values and social activism in our city. Your gifts will sustain the church and our programs and the work we do that demonstrates to the community who we are. We are completely self-supporting, and we are grateful for your ongoing faithfulness to your pledge. Many choose to give through the modern ways we have: electronic, QR code in the order of service, link on our website, bank drafts. However, we still pass the plate because that act is an act of community. Even if you've already given this month through one of those other methods, please take the plate and pass it to your neighbor or to the row behind you. That adds your good energy to this tradition. We will have a responsive reading before the sermon, and it's number 468 in your gray hymnal by George E. Odell, titled, "We Need One Another." I will say the part in regular text, and all of you will say the part in italics. And I see it's up on the screen. I will begin. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted.
We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid.
We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves.
We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone.
We need one another in the hour of our success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs.
We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again.
We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey.
All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. The sermon was written by Reverend Shawn Gauthier, who is from the Foothills Unitarian Universalist Church in Fort Collins, Colorado. And he begins by saying, with Thanksgiving coming up soon, most, if not all of us, will gather around tables with people we care about to break bread. It being Thanksgiving and all, before digging in, someone might even suggest that someone should say a blessing over the meal. Now, while I suspect this moment triggers panic in the hearts of the more prayer-averse among us, my guess is that we're all just a little bit relieved when someone, anyone else really, agrees to take up this most solemn duty of Thanksgiving. Now, as you might imagine, being asked to say grace on short notice and in all sorts of settings is something of a job hazard in my line of work. Along with these standard wedding rehearsal dinners and the 50th wedding anniversary celebrations, I've also been called upon to offer a blessing before a football game, or to say grace with a gathering of Muslims and Jews who were at the time refusing to speak to one another. And perhaps, like many of you, I have been nudged into praying at family holiday meals, though I should tell you that those invitations have tapered off in recent years, no doubt a not-so-subtle commentary on my theology and politics. Now, that reminds me of an old episode of The Simpsons, when Bart was asked to say grace. With his head bowed, he prayed, "Dear God, we paid for all this food ourselves, so thanks for nothing." It's an honest enough prayer, given our modern separation from the sources of so much of what we eat and the vast resources and labor hidden behind most every item that fills our shopping carts. Yet, it would be a mistake, like Bart's, to take the ability to buy anything I'll get it. It would be a mistake, like Bart's, to take the ability to buy anything one might want in this world to somehow be a sign of self-love. An angel got its wings. If anything, our very need to pay for something, for anything, points instead to the interdependence that is increasingly at the heart of life on this complicated and deeply connected planet of ours. A point brought home to us in distressing detail in recent years, marked by pandemic, war, the damaging effects of climate change. The impact these forces have had on our economy of late are the reminder that we are served by supply chains that stretch around the planet in places we don't even know. And it should remind all of us that what touches the life of one of us eventually affects us all. But I'm not here today to talk to you of our global economy, heaven forbid, but instead of gratitude. That happens to be the theme of all of our services this month, gratitude. 700 years ago, Meister Eckhart said that if the only prayer we ever learn to say is thank you, that would be enough. I think he was onto something there. Something we arguably need as much or more of in our time than in his. For to have thank you on our lips is the surest sign I know that we recognize that our lives are lived in relationship, marvelously and sometimes frustratingly entangled with others, but always in relationship. Yet it is one of life's truths that we so easily forget, a truth so readily sacrificed on the altar of independence. Whenever we see ourselves somehow set apart from the gifts and obligations of community, of meaningful connection. Though the topic warrants a full sermon on its own, in passing, I'd like to say that this point gets to the heart of my own notion of sin. That living as we do in a delicate and interconnected web with all of life, that to break faith with those relationships for one's own gain is to have a sinful disregard for the sacred trust that binds us all together with all of life. There is a story inspired by a passage in Alice Walker's book, Sent by Earth, that describes a very unusual tribe in South Africa called the Babendma. They were unusual because of the way they handled problems in their community. Now, this is adapted from a telling of that story by Dana Lightsey. Now, the story is of a grouchy old man who moved to the village. He didn't really fit in very well because he was always in a bad mood. He didn't take very good care of himself. He didn't even seem to like himself. He mostly kept to himself, except when he sold his baskets of fruit that he gathered from the forest. Now, despite his grouchy demeanor, some people noticed what a beautiful voice he had when he called out to the villagers when he was in the market. Others noticed what great care he took in preparing the fruit. Still others noticed how he was always generous to the children. But one day, one of the villagers' cows went missing. Everyone was puzzled. They couldn't imagine how the cow could have gotten away without someone's help. They feared someone may have stolen the cow, but rarely had anyone stolen anything in this village, so they were even more confused. The villagers began looking for the cow everywhere and eventually found it far away, tied up next to the grouchy man's hut. Now, it was the tradition of this village that for everyone to surround a person when they had broken the law. So when the man returned from picking fruit, all the villagers surrounded him in a very large circle. This made the man very nervous. He didn't know what they were going to do to him. And while he knew he shouldn't have stolen the cow, he was desperate for some milk. And he had reached a point of not caring about what happened to him anymore, and thought no one else cared either. So just as he was bracing for the worst from these villagers, though, they all began to say very nice things about him. They bombarded him with compliments. They were yelling out things like, "We love the way you prepare your fruit," And we're grateful to you for giving fruit to our children. And thank you for your beautiful voice when you call out to us. They yelled out all of the things they liked about him, all the things he was good at, all the wonderful things he had done. This was not what he was expecting at all. And at that moment, his anger and hatred for himself began to melt away, and his heart began to open to the kindness of these people. They continued to bombard him, and the villagers saw his face change. The man was crying. The children ran to hug him. All of the villagers welcomed him back to the tribe. And the man eventually sang and danced with all of the villagers late into the night. Never had he ever felt so good about himself. Never had he felt he truly had a place to belong. He then knew that he had people who cared about him, because rather than punishing him, they reminded him of his best self. And from that day forward, the grouchy man was grouchy no more. He spent the rest of his life trying to be the best person he could be, because all the people around him believed that he could be better than he had been. Now, this story demonstrates not only an amazing act of forgiveness, but the transforming power of gratitude. What moved me about this story is that gratitude served as the way back in, the way back into relationship, into community, and into the fullness of life. My heart was moved by the example of a community that, damaged by this one man's selfish act, could find healing by choosing to see him as more than his mistakes, a person who had simply forgot his inherent worth and dignity and lost sight of his best self. If such words of gratitude, such words of deep appreciation could restore and recall a grouchy man back to his best self, what about us? Let's go back to that responsive reading by George Odell that we just shared. We need one another. Every line speaks to the gifts of love we give to each other in community, but some of the most moving are these. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and we need to be recalled to our best selves again. What if we, like the Babemba people, were to adopt gratitude as our way to make these words real? Just what effect might true thanksgiving have on our lives, not just on a special Thursday, but every day? A wealth of research into gratitude has brought forth a number of compelling findings. Studies, like this one from 2002, have shown that gratitude is good for us. It says, grateful people report higher levels of positive emotions, life satisfaction, vitality, and optimism, and lower levels of depression and strength. People with a strong disposition towards gratitude have the capacity to be empathic and take the perspective of others. They are rated as more generous and more helpful by people in their social networks. Grateful people are more likely to acknowledge a belief in the interconnectedness of all life and a commitment and responsibility of others to others. And I want to make sure you hear this point. Those who regularly attend religious services and engage in religious activities are more likely to be grateful. And I believe this is especially true for us as Unitarian Universalists. My colleague Galen Gingrich, who's the minister of All Souls Unitarian in Manhattan, which used to be my home church, I know Reverend Gingrich, he sees gratitude as our defining practice. He says that for Jews, the defining discipline is obedience. To be a faithful Jew is to obey the commands of God. For Christians, the defining discipline is love. To be a faithful Christian is to love God and love your neighbor as yourself. For Muslims, the defining discipline is submission. To be a faithful Muslim is to submit to the will of Allah. And what of us? What should be our defining religious discipline? Now, while obedience, love, and even submission each play a vital role in the life of faith, Reverend Galen's conviction is that our defining discipline should be gratitude. As he explains it, there are two dimensions that recommend gratitude as a compelling defining religious discipline practice for UUs. One, he says, has to do with a discipline of gratitude, and the other has to do with an ethic of gratitude. His discipline of gratitude reminds us of how utterly dependent we are on the people and the world around us for everything that matters. From this, he says, flows an ethic of gratitude that obligates us to create a future that justifies an increasing sense of gratitude for the human family as a whole. The ethic of gratitude, he says, demands that we nurture the world that nurtures us in return. The two forms gratitude takes in our lives as a discipline and an ethic are natural outcomes of what he calls the two elements of religious experience: awe and obligation. It is, he says, the experience of awe and wonder that leads to the discipline of gratitude, and the experience of obligation and responsibility that leads to an ethic of gratitude. Let's return to the Babemba people of South Africa. Let me explain here. We can see both the discipline and the ethic in action. The discipline of gratitude, the practice of recognizing the depths of our interdependence, is evident in the careful attention the tribe had paid to the grouchy man's best attributes long before ever the cow went missing. The tribe had already been cultivating a culture of deep appreciation by bothering to routinely notice those splendid moments that point to another's best self. The ethic of gratitude can, of course, be seen in the way the tribe addressed a selfish act by one of its own. There were so many other ways to respond to this crime, and the man clearly feared the worst when he was surrounded by his tribe. But rather than hurl insults or stones, they bombarded him with blessings of gratitude and appreciation. With their words, they gave back to him the dignity he had squandered through stealing. No wonder he wept. No wonder they danced. It was a moment of grace, a moment that restored the fabric of a community by honoring the sacred bonds that bound their lives together. So, friends, should you be called upon to say grace this Thanksgiving, may you take up the challenge with conviction. May you open your hearts and minds to the wonder of just being alive. May you be filled with gratitude for those who have called you to your highest self. And when you manage to catch your breath, may you simply begin with the words, "Thank you." Reverend Shawn Gauthier.
Thank you, David. Please rise in body or spirit as our song leaders come forward to join in singing hymn number 402 in the gray hymnal, "From You I Receive." It is very short, just one sentence long, so we're going to sing it 3 times. Then remain standing for the closing words. Jean will now return to extinguish the chalice. As we extinguish this flame, we remember the spark within each of us has the capacity to shine brightly, and we each have the ability to relight the spark in others when theirs may be dimming. "From you I receive, and to you I give" is endless as long as we keep passing the light. Please carry this truth with you, along with the love, gratitude, and support of this community as you leave here. May it be so.